Hi everyone, so recently I made a video talking about the Guardians, the Jeopardy set. So in case you haven't seen it yet, in season 27 there is a rework to this crafted set, so you have to find a recipe and then you can get it from the blacksmith. And it is a very strong, especially beginner and like low Paragon choice because of this bonus here that says you get 100% of your base, strength, dexterity, int, and vitality from your equipped items. Now this tooltip right now is actually wrong, so in the final patch notes for season 27, the 2 and the 3-piece bonuses were actually flipped. So this is on the 3-piece bonus now, and that was half expected, I guess, because this is like the strong bonus, so it should be on the higher set requirement. Similar to, for example, you have the strong bonus of Aughild on the 3-piece and a strong bonus of Crimson on the 3-piece. So it kind of makes sense that this was changed. Originally, we actually had like some setups that only used the 2-piece bonus and completely ignored the 3-piece bonus, which gives you a bit of damage reduction, but it's not really crazy. And there was one setup in particular that really profited from this, which was the new Strafe Impale Shadow Demon Hunter that I already made a guide about. So unfortunately for that build, they actually have to run a Ring of Our Grandeur now. So they lose the conventional elements, they're going to lose like 3 tiers or so. It's not the biggest deal, but this was one of those builds that would really profit from this like 2-piece bonus being the strong one. Good thing for most other builds that actually can use this is that they usually have Ring of Our Grandeur in the build already, because they're forced to use it for various other effects, or simply because they can't fit in the Guardian's 2-piece bonus without it. And over the last few days, I finished up my macro updates for the upcoming season, and I also made all the different planners for all the classes, for all the stats. And yeah, I tried to identify like the rules, basically, of using Guardian set. So the idea here, obviously, is that you use this at low Paragon, but later, as you progress to a higher level, it becomes worse and worse and worse, because this bonus only applies to the base attributes. So only what you have on your items, like the strength and the vitality, but not your Paragon, most importantly. So as of the PTR, this bonus also applied to the gems in the item. So if you socket like strength here, for example, this would work, but this doesn't really make it like that much better than like just diamonds for strength and dex classes. And there's also not really many opportunities to actually use the Aughilds on strength and dex classes anyway. So as you will see in a moment, there's not that many builds that will run this set, in fact. So as a rule of thumb, a build that can run Aughilds or Crimson can usually also run Guardian set, but yeah, there are some caveats, especially towards the Crimson. So usually Crimson also serves a secondary purpose of giving you the cooldown reduction or even resource cost reduction for certain builds. And having less than whatever you can reach with Crimson is not feasible for some builds. So this applies especially for Crusaders, for example. Like there is no Crusader build, in fact, that uses Guardian set, because Crusaders always go for like a full Accurate's champion arc time or 32-second cycles of Accurate's champion. And they, first of all, profit a lot from Crimson because of the high cooldown, and they usually need the Crimson to even reach the right cooldown values. So Aughilds is usually a much easier replacement. So this is usually just like damage and elite damage and damage reduction and elite damage reduction. So nothing really like, mandatory for anything. And it also shares at least one slot, which is the Bracer, with the Guardian set. So usually this is like a quite easy replacement. You can see this here, for example, on the Frenzy Barb. So I made like a setup. Here's the Guardian. So we have the Bracer and the belt. We have Death Diggers equipped, the Undisputed Champion in the cube. And here we have the Aughilds equipped. So we have the Bracer again, and then they can do like, chest, helm, whatever. And there's the belt. And here we have the Death Diggers in the cube. So you have exactly the same like legendary items. You have like exactly the same slots, basically, just like you swap one of them around. However, there are some exceptions to this. So if a set has no shoulder, so if it's like a non-standard 6-piece set or 7-piece set, like Innas or Zunimasa and these kind of things, then you have to run Aughilds in case, Aughilds is included in the build at all. So this applies, for example, to Innas or Zunimasa on the high-end version. They run Aughilds. and there's no way to fit in Guardians as a result, so you just can't make use of the shoulder slot. And also the Guardian set is generally outclassed at around 2,000 to 3,000 Paragons. So usually what happens there is that you have more toughness from the Guardian set coming from all the vitality they gain. So again, if you look at this setup here, 10,000 vitality. Yeah, this is like actually a bad example because I have 800 points here in Paragons. So I usually standardize the planners for 5k. That's just how we do it for max roll standard for comparability. But typically most builds run much less vitality in Paragons, and then the Guardian set has a bigger impact. So it roughly doubles your toughness. The problem with that is that this toughness also needs to be like healed up. You have like a much larger life pool, and a build that does not have like percent life recovery mechanic, for example, Simplicity Strength, or let's say the new Tragoul's Necromancer with Siphon Blood, and these kind of things actually have trouble healing all this health. So this is actually a downside of Guardians. It's just like straight up HP and no recovery. So you gotta take this more toughness here with a bit of grain of salt. So only if your build has some extraordinary recovery mechanics, this usually makes even sense. And then again, at this Paragon threshold between 2 and 3k, usually you have like slightly less damage than something like Aughild, for example, especially against elites, or less utility. So in the case of replacing Crimson, for example, you get like more cooldown users, or you get like more skill users from the resource. So this is like another factor here that also plays a bit of a role in some cases where, for example, on a Shadow DH, you have way more resources to spam Smokescreen so you can protect your Squirt's necklace. So this is like an indirect damage buff. There's one interesting case that I've identified where you run the Guardian set basically forever, which is the Typhon Hydra wizard. And the reason for that is that the extra toughness that you gain from the Guardian set is essentially the same as one of the items that you lose, which is the Ashnagar Bracer, which gives you 100% bigger shields. And shields scale with your life, so the Guardian's extra vitality effectively has the same purpose. And there is no belt in the cube either. So basically a build that has no bracer and no belt and already has a ring for a grandeur by default without giving up another ring can just use Guardians, yeah, basically for free, and you will almost never replace this. So maybe at some point, like it's 8k Paragons or something, reaching out would sort of just be better than this little bit of stats that you get at this point. But yeah, this is like one of those very interesting cases. Another note to take here is that when you craft this Guardian set early in the season, you want to make sure to do so like economically if you can. So this costs bounty materials, this costs normal crafting materials, and yeah, as we saw, this is usually like early Paragon choice, so something that will be replaced down the line in almost every single case. And especially the helm is very difficult to craft. So the helm of the Guardian set always comes with a forced movement speed roll as a primary. So this makes it so that you have to get everything else right and then roll off the movement speed, because it's a terrible stat to have. So you want to try to avoid crafting the helm if you can. This is not possible in every single setup, but here is, for example, one of those cases where you might want to swap around some items. So for example, you're running the Shadow DH and you have the Guardian set here in the bracer and the belt slot. That's much better than crafting the helm. And you can, for example, just wear a Mantle of Channeling and then actually cube the Wrath of Clarity. So there could be other setups where you wear the belt and the helm, for example, of the Guardian set, and then you have the wraps here, and then you cube the mantle. So this is like something that was brought to my attention, and I actually went through all my planners again to check for that. And I made it so that basically the most economic choice was taken here. Either way, when we look at the fallout of the final patch notes that changed the Guardian set and flipped around the two bonuses, I compiled a full list and a rather small list of builds that will actually or want to include Guardian set at low Paragons. So we expected this to be like a lot more common because of the huge power of the set, especially when you imagine like Paragon 800 or so, you have like nothing from Paragons, and then you get this and it can almost straight up double your damage. So before you get your augments that actually don't count, in case you're wondering, and before you get any kind of Paragons, Guardian set is actually quite powerful. But the problem is that very quickly you're gonna start getting those Echoing Nightmare keys, and you're gonna start augmenting your items, and you're gonna, you know, get Paragon bonus stats. So you're gonna be like 1k, you know, in no time. And don't really want to invest these materials necessarily for something that you're gonna wear for maybe a few hours or maybe a few days maximum. So there's a lot of builds where, yeah, maybe it would kind of make sense if you just had it for free, basically, but you don't really want to, like, you know, go for it because it's not really fitting in that well. So there are some builds where you can fit it in rather well, and then you have, like, you know, this 2 to 3k Paragon limitation, and those are the following. So on the Barb, there's one build, which is a Frenzy, so I've shown that one. Crusader, as I mentioned earlier, usually has nothing because Crimson and Akarat's Champion is just too important. There is like a build or two that actually runs all guilds, but yeah, again, you don't really want to go for Guardians in this case. Again, because of the healing mechanics, for example. Shadows, this is a Season 27 special actually for the Shadow DH because of this new strafe setup that changes a few things. I checked the non-seasonal version where, like, the old regular setups, and there is actually all guild setups there, but again, the problem is the recovery. So Shadows is a build that heavily relies on high amounts of recovery to out-heal the incoming damage. So I would not recommend going Guardian set there at all. So it's just like not really cutting it. Monk is a class full of like bracers that are really important. So usually that blocks out any kind of use for the Guardian set. Necromancer has two builds. So there's a new Tragouls. So again, you can do basically the all guild versus Guardian swap. So here's like a low Paragon version, and then if the high Paragon version, you swap around a few pieces, basically. Same thing. And Bone Spear. Bone Spear is also a build that is quite flexible, so you can do like Aughild, Crimson, and other stuff. And again, here you can also run Guardian set. Witch Doctor actually has nothing. So on the first version, with the 2-piece being so strong and the 3-piece being irrelevant, there was some potential on the Witch Doctor, replacing, for example, Lakumba, and then just having the Guardian set or these kind of things. For example, on Mundunugu Witch Doctor, this was quite powerful, which made it a bit better than usual and a bit more tanky. But this is gone now, so there's nothing. And on the Wizard, yeah, there is like a few setups here. So I mentioned Typhon, where it's gonna be like used forever, basically. And then there's the Firebird, where you can do it on low Paragon, and also the DMO Twister. Yeah, and this is it. So these are all the builds that I put any kind of Guardian setups into in the planners, and where I felt this made sense. Seems like way less than I anticipated. And even if you go to like, you know, Paragon 800 scenario or something like that, it's not really like any other builds that profit that much more because of the things I mentioned. So all in all, I gotta say, it's definitely quite an interesting set. So I'm very happy that Blizzard decided to rework the Guardian set, and it is a new choice. It doesn't have to be used for every single thing, so I think that's okay. And the thing is that especially early in the season, with a lot of these builds, you are generally rather squishy, and the Guardian set helps you with this. And I think some more updates that go in like a similar direction wouldn't even be that bad for the future. So there are still some other like crafted sets, for example, like the Demon set, the Shira set. Yeah, there's some more potential to include more things like that, where you can like swap around a few pieces on certain builds and, you know, replace Crimson or replace Aughild or replace the Guardian set with something else. So I think this actually adds like more flavor, this adds like more choices, and that's always great. And that's it for this video. So I just wanted to give you the full overview of Guardian set, like everything there is to know about, you know, how it works, when you want to use it. Turns out it's not really all that much, but there are these opportunities here and there. So hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more D3 content. I'm going to keep you guys posted with more stuff for Season 27. And I'll see you guys next time.